Hello everyone, welcome back to another video, and today I want to look at some of previous cuttings that I have rooted, and I want to work a bit on them, so giving them a bit of a prune, cutting them back, seeing the overall health of those trees, and simply working on some future bonsai material basically. And already here in front of me I have a bunch of jade plants or Crassula ovatas that I have simply potted up in the same pot here. You can also find most of those jade plants like this in garden centers, for example, where you put a couple of jade plants in the same pot and let them grow. I put them also here simply in a plastic cover pot, and I have grown them for 1.5 years, I think. And it is time definitely again for a prune. I want in the future to have them, of course, ramify a bit more, so I want to cut them back and hopefully they then bifurcate and create 2 new branches from this cutting point, and through this create in the future a tree looking plant. You can see most of them have already 1 or 2 bifurcation, or they have ramified a little bit at least, but not to the extent that I would like to have them ramify in the future. So I would say let's start right away by looking at them each separately and see what we can actually do here. For example, this one here, I can see on top actually it is starting to ramify again, so I will not touch the top here. But on this side we don't have this effect yet, so I will simply take out the tip. In the future we'll also remove the lower leaves from here, of course, to give it this look of a tree that is bare until a certain point and then the foliage starts. But for now I simply let it on here, let the tree or the plant grow still a little bit more, and then do this in the future. Here we have a little smaller side branch that we can also already cut back the tip to hopefully have it also here, create 2 new branches, and we do the same thing on top here, depending on how much we want to cut back. I will have to take a look here. But I would say to 1 leaf pair is normally something that works quite fine. And I actually see here also a little side branch already. So this one is definitely showing good potential right now. This one here, I'm not so sure because I find it a bit too long actually. So I might start this one over again. And I'm also not too happy with the way it is bifurcating here. So I'm just taking out a bigger part, and of course something like this you can easily, with jade plants, create a new cutting from. So we could still probably separate it or actually leave it together. I could take out, I'll just show you, take out the 2 lower leaves. I would then let this callus over for at least 1 day, best actually 2 days, so until the wounds have basically sealed over, have dried, and then you just put it in a pot with soil, water it once in a while, and it will normally always take root. So jade plants are very easy to propagate. So if you're a fan of propagation, jade plants definitely a good plant for you to try out if you have not done so yet. Let me put this to the side to probably pot it up later. So we've cut this one back, and this one here, I'm not so sure I will actually want to work on it too much because I'm very happy with the way this one is actually developing. Here, potential future side branch, here already nice branching out also. I will probably just take out the newest growth here, and that's it. So this would be the first jade. However, as I mentioned, I have a couple other cuttings right here next to me that I want to work on. This isn't actually a cutting, this is when I created a Ficus benjamina bonsai. It was in the same pot, but it was a separate plant. So it had already some root mass on it, but I simply decided to put it in a pot and let it grow also as a potential future tree in a couple of years actually, because it's very thin at this point. What I already do see is that we have here a nice leader developing. I will let this grow as wild as possible over the next years to really help it thicken the trunk in the future. But what I can see here is this little side branch here that is already now getting a bit too long, so I would simply already stunt the growth here a little bit and take it back. Here we have A lower growth I will leave on at the moment, because I also here have the hope that it will simply thicken the lower part of the trunk then still. And here's a bit unhealthy looking growth that we can also take out. Also here some lower growth that for now, why not leave it on. Also here already can take out one of the tips. And as I said, the leader will simply leave the way it is for now. So quick and easy way of working on a potential cutting. Here I have a bit older cutting, also a Ficus benjamina, because I do have a lot of Ficus benjamina. This is from another bonsai actually that I've created before that basically was the old apex of that tree, and I simply put it in soil at almost this thick as it is right now, and it has rooted. However, as you can see, I have neglected this one a little bit, so some of the branches have died back. My idea for this in general was to create a semi-cascade in the future out of this tree, so this is why I have it the way it is in this pot, to already grow a bit downwards here. But as I said, there has been some dieback and some dead branches that definitely have to be taken out of the picture here. I can see also here in the back, this one, no growth to be expected from it. Also this one here we can take off. And even here inside the pot there are two that have died back, which is a bit unfortunate because I always pictured it having here like a nice little pad and then the semi-cascade down. But maybe, you know, it is Ficus, it can backbud normally, so I have not lost the hope yet on this tree also forming a pad here in the future. But for now, let me see if we also do some work on the leaves here, but as it is still very new leaves that have only grown back now that I actually take care of it a bit more again, I don't want to stress the tree too much by already taking out newly formed foliage again. So for now, we will leave it at that. So before coming to a third Ficus benjamina, we once again have a jade also here. As I said, this is again one of those cuttings that I take, for example, like this one before. You simply put it into a little pot. I normally for jades do like terracotta pots because it works quite nicely with them. It's well draining, so you don't run the risk of overwatering that much. And it roots almost by itself, and then just water it once in a while and you will have a nice, cheerful looking plant. I have already pruned back at certain points before, and I see new growth forming here that again I would take back to 1 or 2 leaf pairs, hoping that it will in the future again branch out a little bit. Also this tiny little growth here. I try to keep this as dense as possible actually. In the future I might actually try to turn this into a mame bonsai, so really interesting on how this could look in the future. I already can see that the bottom of the stem is starting to turn into this bark looking like brown color from the green that you can see still here on top. So definitely good potential on this one to really keep it miniature and as small as possible and see how we can work on this in the future. You can see here actually no growth has formed since the last prune, so we'll take it back even further, give it a new start here, and done with this tree. And as I said, one more Ficus benjamina, same origin as the first one that I've shown you, so it was also part of this tree that I got and turned into a bonsai, so it was already also having roots by itself, and yes, tried to pot it up. Of course it took then if it already had roots, and I simply want to work a bit on it. Already see in which shape we could bring this tree in the future. What I can see, we probably have 2 competing leaders here at the moment, so one here to the side, a bit thinner one here that could be actually turned into a side branch. So I just want to stunt the growth here a little bit or take it back a little bit to this point here, and also this upwards moving growth, take it back. So in the future we could already with very thin wire give it a bit of a shape here downwards. Here you can see a very long growth that I don't see as a new leader, so I want rather here the tree to focus on this growth here, so take it also back. Also, let's look at the back of the tree. Here we can also see a rogue growth that is simply very laggy that we can take out at this point, because it's not going to get better in the future if we let this run. But for now, I think not much work that is needed on this tree. We can actually in the future probably take also back this branch here if we turn this into a side branch. But for now, again, the idea to thicken the trunk, I will leave it on at the moment. You can see, of course, the white sap, as you normally do when you cut back ficus. But that's normally also not a problem for the tree. It doesn't stain normally. It stains your fingers, that definitely, but the tree normally can handle it. So for now, that is actually all the cuttings that I wanted to work on today. Very ficus heavy and jade plant heavy, but those are simply trees that I do like to take cuttings from. They're quite easy to propagate. They're one of my favorite trees anyway to turn into bonsai, so it's always good to have some cuttings on hand to work on when your more mature trees simply need time to grow and to grow into their future form. Then it's always nice to be able to let the propagations also have some prunings that can change the shape in the future, hopefully. If you have any questions about my propagations, how I took them or how I care for them or how I keep them, of course, feel free to leave that in the comments. If you enjoyed this video, feel free to like it, of course, also. And if you enjoyed this channel, feel free to subscribe to it. And hopefully I will see you then in the next video. Until then, goodbye.